in the end of the day, you need to control the minds of the people that work for you, right? That are in the club or in the cult. Religious leaders do that. A large corporate company leaders must do that. If they want to reach their goals. This is very accurate. I think you said they would never hire me, and you're right.
Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 4 of our 5-part series with Alan Jarrar from 50% Arabica, and we are causing all kinds of fantastically good trouble on the podcast so far. And so I'm going to go ahead. Don't you agree, Alan? Yes. I'm going to go ahead and cause a little bit more good trouble. We're talking about coffee cults, and so I want to share my experience of being in a coffee cult very early on in my career in coffee. I was a part of what is well documented in the Sydney coffee scene as a coffee cult. I'm not going to say the name of the company, but this was a place where we were so controlled in this cult that we were not allowed to talk to customers during service. We were not allowed to look at customers during service. We were not allowed to talk to each other. If we talked to our teammates, we were scolded at the end of the shift by the owner. And if we didn't, for example, fold the napkins the right way from the top right corner to the bottom left corner, if we went in the opposite direction, we were yelled at. And the crazy thing about this is, and I'm almost ashamed to admit this, but the idea of leaving this place gave me anxiety. Like not being a part, even though I knew I was being emotionally and in so many ways other than physically abused, I knew that this was damaging me. Because this place was so well revered and so idolized in the coffee industry, my ego could not even comprehend the idea of leaving because I would no longer be a part of the club. And that's the definition of a cult, folks.
Totally.
And we would get told at the beginning of every single shift when we had our little huddle, we would get told the best baristas in this city are in this room right now. It was Sydney. This is the coffee capital of the world for years at the time. And so we were getting pumped up by being told the best baristas in this city are in this room right now. And the property prices around this cafe were the highest in the suburb because they were around this cafe. People would come and worship at our altar. Other baristas would walk into the cafe and bow down to us. They would literally bow down to us, which is a really damaging thing to happen to you in the early years of your career, because the regimented way that this place was structured then would lead you to treat people that way everywhere else that you worked after that. So I can really empathize with people who are a part of a coffee cult, because the positives of being a part of a coffee cult, any kind of a cult, is that you belong somewhere. And you feel safe. No matter the dysfunction, it's a dysfunctional family, but you're a part of the club. And there are some seriously damaging things about being a part of that. Go ahead, Alan. I can see the thoughts written all over your face.
That was a pretty tough story to begin with. Is this still going on, or was it?
It went on for over a decade. There are people who I saw every man I worked with cry. Every man, and I was, it was 20 years ago, there weren't that many women in coffee in Sydney. And everyone I worked with was a man. And I saw every single one of them cry. And to answer your question, it went on for about another 10 years after that. And then the culture changed. And the funny thing was, I went in there with one of my colleagues who I worked with at that place. And here's how long the dysfunction lasts. When we went in there and we saw that they were all like chatting with customers and laughing and having a great time, the way that you should be in a cafe, we thought that they were the ones that lost out. Like, you guys have it so easy compared to us. Like, back in the good old days, like, we're the OG, I almost said the name, company name Baristas. You guys don't know that, like, this whole brand was built on the old school method. And I walked away from that thinking, wow, that's really fucked up, Lee. Like, how could you think that these guys have it easy and like as though they're less than because they didn't earn the right to say that they were the company name, Baristas? But that's how long the programming goes. And it is programming. When you're being told that you are the best baristas in the city and you are being told that this is the way that everything is done for a serious coffee company. And look, the coffee company ended up selling for over $100 million to a big corporate. And they built it up and built it. But at that time, we were one tiny shop. We were one tiny shop. And it was a super dysfunctional place to work. And I know, well, I don't know, in my opinion, this is happening at a lot of places around the world where people are being convinced and brainwashed and I don't know, led to believe that the place that they feel like they belong, but they know that they're not happy working there. They know they leave every day with this little voice in their head that says, this is not right. There's something not right here. But they can't leave because once you leave, you're out of that group and you're no longer going to belong. And what happens then? And this is classic cult behavior.
I've heard similar stories about some large commercial coffee companies here in Czech Republic. One of my friends left one Starbucks in Prague, one particular one, for things like that, like being told where you can stand, when you can talk, with who, what you can touch. It might be, at least I never worked in a corporate environment. I wouldn't.
But that's how it was. That's from your opinion, how it happened.
I mean, this is coming from a friend who worked there, so in my opinion, I have no reasons not to believe her.
Okay.
So this is just a story.
I feel like you should start memes now about in my opinion.
I think so. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. So, oh dear.
So I never worked in a corporate environment where these things might. I wouldn't last a week. I'm too stubborn and feel independent. If I'm being told like exactly what I can and can't, I'm done there.
But let me say something. They would never hire you because of that. And this is the other thing about cults, folks. They're predatory. They hire. I mean, I remember saying at the time when I was working there, do you guys get the feeling that the coffee industry attracts a certain kind of insecure person? And everyone that I was working with was like, no. But now, years later, I have those conversations with them, and they're coming to realize that we all worked for a cult. They finally admit that they were also a part of this cult. And it wasn't that the coffee industry itself attracts a certain kind of insecure person. It's that these cults target in their interviewing. The same way, in my opinion, that sexual predators who run small businesses target people specifically. These people prey on people who have a certain kind of insecurity. And it's really damaging, and it's important to keep an eye out for it.
I mean, if you're running a large company that wants to, whether it's coffee company or anything else, that has a very strong leadership that wants to kind of have everything under control, whether it's for financial or business purposes. But you need, eventually, in the end of the day, you need to control the minds of the people that work for you, right? That are in the club or in the cult. Religious leaders do that. A large corporate company leaders must do that. If they want to reach their goals. This is very accurate. I think you said they would never hire me, and you're right.
Folks, our first on-demand workshop, How to Become a Coffee Consultant, is now available for you to learn at your own pace for just €50, and it comes with a certificate upon completion. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for more details. Support this podcast by supporting our sponsors.
I've been to a few interviews. Like, this was before my coffee career. Everyone around me was telling me that I'm a gifted salesman, that I should do something with that skill because I can serve. Often people ask me in my coffee shop, like, what coffee sells the most from what you have? We have, let's say, 4 coffees, and I always answer the same thing. It's the coffee I want to sell that sells the most.
Right.
Because something is roasted maybe in large quantities, and I need to kind of push it, and it's all delicious. So I don't care. I have my strategies how to manipulate customers to buy what I want them to buy. I think that makes you a gifted salesman in the end of the day. And they would never hire me because I always felt like I'm an independent thinker. I like to question things and use critical thinking whenever I can. And I was applying for Vodafone as a salesman in one of their shops. They were opening in 2008 in Brno. And it was a long interview day, and it was like a group of 18 of us. And I ended up in the finals. Was starting at 8 a.m. and ending at 7:30 p.m. We were all kind of drained, and it was between me and one other person. The last test was a face-to-face interview with the managers of that soon-to-be opened shop, and there were some tests like sell me a garlic ice cream.
Okay.
Scenario, and I would start like improvising, because no one wants to try garlic ice cream, right? So, but yeah, sell me that. So it was fun. It taught me a few things. It was very valuable that particular one day, and I ended up not being hired. I learned that a week later when they sent me and the other person the email. And they talked a lot about that, which was nice to get that feedback. And they were like, yeah, it was a very tough decision between you two. But what I took from that, because it was a sentence that said something like, what's the word in English? Not like it felt like they're saying you're too bold or too independent.
Okay.
Too much temperament. It felt like they're choosing the other person because I wouldn't be the greatest fit within the
Because they
team.
couldn't control you.
Perhaps it felt like that. It wasn't negative, certainly. I took that as a positive, and I tried to use that since I started in coffee as a barista, and eventually I ended up co-owning a shop with my partner. And the thing I love about that, I love working in. I enjoy working in large teams, but I love working alone or in a very, very small team. It gives me kind of a sense of freedom that over the years, working in teams means you need to be aligned with the values of the company or with the ownership and with the management and with the coffee shop or coffee company vision. But if you're creative, it felt the right. It wasn't the right thing for me because I felt creative and my ideas were often like pushed under the rug because it wasn't that it's not what we are looking for. And I'm like, okay, maybe I should open my own shop where I would use actually the ideas I have. And it was the best thing. Like you said in episode 2, I think, happy first year anniversary to your shop.
Yeah.
It's, the business is getting better. We are kind of in the suburb area in Brno. So it's slow, but people are, raising awareness about the shop, and it's been great to be there. So one thing I think, in my opinion, kind of pushes back when you're part of something very corporate, very cultish in a way. The first thing that goes away is what I've noticed is critical thinking usually. Not that the people who are in the cults or in corporates that have very strong leadership don't have critical thinking. Not that, but it kind of is, not used. I think it's a muscle. Critical thinking is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it is. The less you use it, the weaker it is, and you can find yourself in a position where you completely forget about having that muscle. It can be a tragedy for a little while, unless something happens and you kind of, wake up from that and start to use that muscle again. I mean, one example, I like watching coffee videos because whether they are educative or for fun, I like to watch what others think, because in the end of the day, everything I learned was stolen from someone else in my career. You learn bits and pieces here and there, and you kind of dovetail everything together, and then make your own opinion or make your own technique out of it. So nothing is really mine in that sense, but I adopted certain things from here and there over the years, and that often doesn't really work in very strict environments where you need to follow only, let's say, only this recipe or only this liquor because it's a sponsored brand for whatever, maybe a vodka or a coffee liquor or whatever, or a certain sugar. Watching others gives you a freedom of wanting to exploring. And I remember I was watching one of the Lance's videos. he has too many. I mean, they're all good. And I turned on the comments and I was scrolling through, and I noticed a few people were kind of in big disagreement with not necessarily with the content of the video, because it was good, I think, but with the personality. And I was like, this is interesting. What is that? So I started digging deeper a little, and I found discussions on Reddit and stuff like that, where you have subreddits that are just dedicated to talk negatively about someone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I have been the subject of some of those subreddits, so I get it.
It can be a famous coffee person, or a certain product. Or a certain grinder. I've seen grinders like being totally bashed, on in certain discussions, and it kind of formed that club somewhere on the internet. It's kind of weirdly interesting how this dynamics works, and I think on both of the sides of that coffee opinion fence, there sometimes maybe lack of critical thinking. In my
it's
opinion.
Group thinking, right? Which is the opposite of it's group thinking.
Yes,
it's a mob kind of mentality. It's the opposite of critical thinking.
I've seen it so many times. I've seen people following a certain a trend or recipe or a product just because a well-known brand said that, or a well-known individual. Oh, the Pope said it. It must be true.
Right. It's dogma, and everyone wants to jump on a bandwagon. There's so many examples of this that happen in the coffee industry and in life, but I wonder why we feel this need to participate. Anyway, we're going to explore that and more in the final episode of this series, folks. I'm sorry we went a little long on this episode. We hope you're finding this series engaging. We certainly are, in our opinion. You really do need to make a meme of it. But well, join us for the last episode of this series. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in, friends. There are 2 ways you can support this podcast. Firstly, become a paid member of our YouTube channel. Secondly, you can join our Patreon for as little as $3 a month. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video before you leave, and check the show notes for more information. Now, this is what you should check out next.